Game Theory Class 3 Video 1. In this video we're going to do an example of calculating the best response functions in a situation where the game has outcomes which have equal payoff. So let's look at the example. Calculate the best response functions for this following game. Okay, so let's start with the best response functions for player 1. The best response for player 1, if player 2 chooses to play X. So if player 2 chooses to play X, we restrict to this column right here. And player 1 has a choice. If player 1 chooses A, they get 4 points. If they choose B, they get 3. And if they choose C, they get 4. So there are two situations, A and C, in which player 1 gets 4 points. And this is what I mean by equal payoff. Okay, and 4 is the highest, and we don't choose one over the other, we just choose them both. So we say A, the best response is A and C, A or C. Okay. Sometimes the best response doesn't just give you one answer, it gives you multiple answers. But that's okay, that's perfectly fine. Another point I want to highlight is, in terms of the best response functions, A is just as good as C. Even though, I understand that if player 1 chooses A, then player 2 gets 2 points, whereas if player 1 chooses C, player 2 gets 3 points. So you might think it's better for player 1 to choose A. That way, player 2 gets fewer points. But when you're talking about best response functions, you don't care about how well your opponent does. All you care about is how well you do. So you just ignore the numbers in the 2 and the 3. They're not relevant for player 1 when player 1 is calculating the best response functions. So the answer for the best response for player 1, if player 2 chooses X, is A and C. Let's move on. The best response for player 1 if player 2 chooses Y. If player 2 chooses Y, we restrict to this column here. Player 1 has a choice between getting 0, 4 or 2. Well, this is straightforward. 4 is the highest, so that would be the answer. So B is the answer. Okay. Now let's move on to the best response functions for player 2. So the best response for player 2 if player 1 chooses A. If player 1 chooses A, we restrict to this row, and player 2 is going to get 2 points if they choose X, and 1 point if they choose Y. Well, 2 is higher than 1, so X is the better thing to do. The best response for player 2, if player 1 chooses B. If player 1 chooses B, we restrict to this row. If player 2 chooses X, they get 6 points. If they choose Y, they get 6 points. So they get 6 points either way. It doesn't matter what they choose. They're both best, so we include both of them. Like that. And finally, the best response for player 2, if player 1 chooses C, we restrict to the bottom row. If player 2 chooses X, they get 3 points, and if player 2 chooses Y, they get 3 points. In both cases, they get 3 points, so both of them are the best response. And this is the answer, okay? This here is the best response function for player 1, and this here is the best response function for player 2. And that's the end of this example, and it's the end of this video.